football has to take a long, hard look at itself. And I feel like this is just a start.
Baddie texting me, had to tell her it's not that deep. It's not that deep. She come with me, she roll with me, her nails on fleek. Nails on fleek. It's not that deep. 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 Your baddie, keep it cool, please.
Yes, people. Yes, people. Yes, people. Welcome back to another episode of the We Talk Football podcast. Obviously, it's a bit of a different one today. My esteemed co-host, Jamie Boyce, is not with me. He's engaged in other activities, but we thought, as we received this earth-shattering news that Roman Abramovich, Chelsea's owner, has been sanctioned by the UK government and his assets have been frozen, we thought it'd be important to release a video, get it out there and kind of discuss what we feel as a podcast about it. Obviously, I'm a Chelsea fan. This is groundbreaking news. This is probably the biggest news that we received during my time as a Chelsea fan. The future for the club is uncertain. It was already uncertain as we saw Abramovich hastily try and sell the club amidst Russia's invasion of Ukraine. We know that the government believe that he's linked to the Kremlin. He has denied that vociferously, but there is no doubt that there are links between Roman Abramovich and Vladimir Putin. And before we get into the video in terms of my thoughts on it, in terms of what the sanctions actually mean, I am a Chelsea fan that has benefited massively from Roman Abramovich's injection of cash into my club, the club that I support. I've supported since the age of 4. We have won every trophy there is to win in the game. We have followed our team to Munich. We've been to Porto. We've seen them win everything. And this year, we finally rounded it off by picking up the Club World Cup, the only trophy missing from our cabinet. But there is no doubt that these sanctions had to come in. And football has been living in a dream world for far too long. Whether it be the ownership of Chelsea Football Club from somebody who has clearly got dirty money in the form of Roman Abramovich, a man, no doubt, in the past, I've sang his name. I have issued my support to this man in terms of what he's done to the club, heralded him as the savior of our club, and maybe living in that dream world with other Chelsea fans, ignoring the fact that the money is dirty money. We look at the money that has been injected into Newcastle, effectively the richest club in the world. We know the atrocious human rights records of the Saudis. We look at the money that has been injected into Man City, into PSG. We look at where the last World Cup was in Russia. The next World Cup is in Qatar, a place where it's illegal to be gay. Football has to take a long, hard look at itself. And I feel like this is just a start. The sanctions imposed on Roman Abramovich in the form of his assets being frozen and Chelsea barely being able to operate as a club is just the beginning of football maybe trying to reverse some of the damage that's been previously done by turning a blind eye to the ownership, the money, and the dirtiness that's infiltrated the game that we love. I'm going to read an article from The Athletic. It's Chelsea owner Roman Abramovich sanctioned by the UK government. The Athletic is obviously one of my key sources of information when I want to find out the latest in football. It's obviously a very trusted source. Scrolling through it, it says, described by the UK government as pro-Kremlin oligarch, Abramovich has been hit with an asset freeze and a travel ban. Culture Secretary Nadine Dorries has said that Chelsea will be issued with a special license that will allow the Premier League club to complete its upcoming fixtures and for staff to be paid and existing ticket holders to attend matches. So essentially, these sanctions involve Chelsea not being able to sell merchandise, to sell new tickets, to renew players' contracts. We know that Chelsea have got a lot of contract disputes with key players. And this summer was going to be very, very important in terms of ironing that out. And if you can't iron those out, maybe bring in some new players. So it goes without saying that Chelsea can't sign new players. We know Andres Christensen, who was linked with Barcelona earlier this week, has not signed a new contract. He's out of contract in the summer. We know Tony Rudiger, who's been one of the best centre-backs in the world for the last 12 months, is out of contract in the summer, and there looks like no resolution in sight. We know that Azpilicueta, Chelsea's captain, a man who's led the club for the best part of a decade, is out of contract in the summer. There are so many question marks, or there were already so many question marks surrounding Chelsea before this Abramovich asset freeze and potential sale of the club due to the invasion of Ukraine from Russia. And it just throws so many things up into the air. Chelsea, of course, play against Norwich at Carrow Road later on today, 7:30 kickoff. How are the players going to be feeling? Chelsea are no longer the attractive option that they used to be. Like we are just off the summer of them signing Romelu Lukaku for £97.5 million. what does that look like now in terms of his contract, how much he's paid? It just, so many things are up in the air. And obviously I don't want to disseminate false information. So I'm just going to get up what those sanctions actually involve, and we can go through them. It's crazy news. So here we go. So Martin Ziegler tweeted this. I actually saw this information from Martin Ziegler initially. So it says, under the license, subject to the conditions below, the club may pay remunerations, allowances, and pensions of all employees of the club, including the wages of players and coaching staff employed by the club. Fees, dividends, or other allowances to directors of the club payable under obligations which predate the date of this license and are due in the period of this license, but not any fees, dividends, or other allowances to the DP. So essentially, Chelsea are allowed to honour the contracts of the existing players they've already got and existing staff they've already got. So the players and the staff are going to still be paid, but they can't take on any new contracts. They can't sign any players in the summer. Chelsea essentially have been frozen. They can honour the existing contracts that they've got to ensure that they can carry on running as a club. And I think that kind of talks to the integrity of the league. Under the sanctions, I believe that Chelsea shouldn't be able to operate, shouldn't be able to honour the fixtures that they've got. But there is integrity when it comes to the Premier League in terms of there's a title race going on, the top four race going on, there's a relegation battle going on. And if Chelsea were just to be removed from the Premier League due to these sanctions, then it would affect the integrity of the Premier League for the 22 or 21-22 season. So I do understand why there's been some allowances. Section 4.3, reasonable fees or other costs directly related to ongoing regular maintenance of the club, including rates, council tax or other taxes, insurance, ongoing maintenance, and inspection to ensure safety and security of its sites, but excluding new capital works or refurbishment. So essentially, in layman's terms, it's just Chelsea can't do anything new going forward. We can't do anything to the training ground, can't do anything to the stadium, we can't sell merchandise, we can't improve the squad, we can't progress the club like teams do every single season, and what Chelsea have been good at for the best part of 2 decades in doing, in terms of moving the club forward, whether it be through transfers, whether it be through improvement to infrastructure, whether it be through new player contracts. Chelsea cannot operate like that going forward anymore. In terms of reasonable costs, so things that would be allowed to do going forward, reasonable costs necessary for the purposes of the club hosting fixtures at its home ground or grounds, including but not limited to the cost of security, catering, and stewarding. So Chelsea will be able to still put on home games. It will only be season tickets holders who will be allowed in those games. So we're going to see a fairly empty Stamford Bridge going forward. And just like I say, it's news that's rocked the footballing world. My phone's been blowing up this morning just from friends, from work. It's just been, it's unprecedented news in terms of the world of football. We are still waiting for comments from Chelsea, from officials from Chelsea, from UEFA, from everybody in football, because this is really, really, really earth-shattering news. And where Chelsea go from here, it's interesting. All I know is that Chelsea got Norwich at 7:30 today at Carrow Road, a must-win game for Chelsea's hopes in the top four. Arsenal breathing down their necks. So all we can do is watch the football that's going to be played later on today. There's so many other games, Sevilla versus West Ham. And we can just wait and hope as a Chelsea fan that these sanctions don't go beyond this or next season, because if they do, Chelsea are going to be in serious trouble. But that's it from me. It's like I said, it's a bit of a different video. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the We Talk Football channel. We are growing gradually. We're available on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts. You can find us on Instagram at We Talk Football Podcast, on Twitter at WTF Podcast 90s. So yeah, make sure you look out for more videos, and we'll be back with more videos very, very soon.
Baddie texting me, had to tell her it's not that deep. She come with me, she roll with me, her nails on fleek.